to the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Strike! The 80-20 Coaching Masterclass, our weekly get-together where coaches go from new to good and good to great. Mastering the fundamentals and the art of coaching.
Welcome, youth baseball coaches, parents, players. Welcome to this week's get-together here with 80-20 Baseball. I am Coach Bo, and we're taking an advanced look at how to simplify our coaching strategies so we can maximize how much better our players and teams get while avoiding having to add more time to our already busy calendars. In today's episode, I'm going to share out an experience that I had recently coaching. I'll share some specific things that myself and the other coach did to make it a very successful season. We'll touch on how we can continue to make baseball more enjoyable and more engaging, keeping players involved and wanting to play baseball for longer, decreasing the churn where kids drop out, go do other things, or worse, nothing at all. We'll quickly discuss a major league record that we can learn from that I think will help all of us go out there as coaches and respond to a bad umpire call much better. So we'll talk about that. And we're also going to discuss how showboating actually leave a big long-term advantage for our players to capitalize on and for us to capitalize on. So I hope everybody's summer's off to a wonderful start. Hope it's going great for y'all. Yesterday, I felt like I was on the set of The Sandlot. What a great baseball movie. I highly recommend showing that baseball movie if you feel your kids are old enough for it. Right around January, maybe March or April for you colder weather states. Watch a couple of those really fun baseball videos. Just sprinkle them in. Say family movie night. We're going to watch these. But nevertheless, over at this local city park here in Boise, chain link fence around. I swear I was looking over my shoulder thinking Squints and the crew were going to roll up. I was going to see the Hambino do himself a nice cannonball. And I thought, wow, this is what summer's all about. Baseball was on the TV all day Saturday and swimming at the city pool, really nice city pool that Boise has with the grass lawn, chain link fence. It felt just like the Sandlot setting, a total summertime vibe. So I hope your summer is going great. And get those kids out in the swimming pool. It's a nice break from baseball. Obviously, it's great in the summer. Get those kids swimming because you want those shoulders stronger. You want their arms stronger. Well, when they got to swim, you got to build up some of that shoulder strength, leg strength. As we all know, swimming is a really fun thing to do, but it also is really good for developing muscle strength and especially in that shoulder area. All right. So recently I did something that very few coaches ever get to do. I never anticipated this ever happening. When I got into coaching 22 years ago, I coached with my wife. Yes, we tag teamed it. We were co-coaches of my kids' volleyball. Now, here's some things that we did, and we had a really successful year. Really successful. The amount of smiles, high fives, the amount of parents that were asking us if we were going to coach in the fall, they wanted to be on the team. Every single player got markedly better. Every single player showed that they understood the game better by the end of the season. All of them got better in at least one skill area, but most of them got better in multiple skill areas. The amount of high fives they were given at the last game versus the first game was through the roof. The amount of smiles, their focus, and the amount of quality reps we got at every single week kept getting higher and higher as the players started to understand and better flow with what they knew my wife and I wanted to do. Now, I'll tell you what, working with assistant coaches or working as an assistant coach, there's some challenges there. And for any of you that ever are coaching with your spouse, feel free to email me. I'm not going to do a segment on it here on the podcast, but there are some other areas there, and I'll give you a few do's and don'ts. But all jokes aside, it was almost identical to coaching with all the other assistant coaches I've coached with over the years, and it was a lot of fun. Here's what we learned. Players prefer fast-paced, high-praise practices, and they didn't mind that we didn't roll out all new drills every single week. We varied the drills a little bit, and we scaled them up, made them a little more challenging every couple weeks. And that was our goal. Every 2 weeks, we would increase the difficulties, even if it was just slightly for each drill, but we did not roll out new drills for every practice. But we did do this. We never ran the same drills 2 practices in a row. Now, we practiced once a week. So these kids would see a drill and then they'd see a slightly varied version of that same drill, but not for 2 weeks. So that kept it fresh while still allowing us to drill home the 80-20 principle, the big needle movers, the fundamentals. In baseball, we always talk about fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. That's the 80-20 principle, the fundamentals. That's what all these coaches have been saying for all of these years. The 80-20 principle is simply quantifying or kind of putting a number on that message of fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. So the players didn't mind at all that we used only 7 drills over the course of a 7-week season because we kept them fast paced. We scaled up or we increased the difficulty, the challenge level, which kept it fresh. We gave high amounts of praise, specific praise, and we tried to give it to every player. My wife brought out a speaker to every single practice, had the Bluetooth speaker going, downloaded a radio version playlist, essentially like a kid-friendly playlist of contemporary upbeat songs, and had it rocking from start to finish. She turned it on at the beginning and had it going the entire time. Now, here's something I learned that I think next season we'll probably do. So this is something I learned. I think the better way of doing that is to find a parent that comes to every practice. And we had a couple parents that were there at every practice, and ask them if they could put together a little playlist, kid-friendly, taking out those explicit lyrics, put together a kid-friendly playlist that they could have on their phone so they could help out with the music. And that could be leveled up, meaning when the drills are going fast, they could turn up the music a little. When the coaches are talking or when we gather up for a quick coaching message, they could turn it down, or at a minimum, they could just handle it. Because with Bluetooth speakers, we all know there's disconnections, there's some issues. Sometimes a call comes in and you're coaching and the phone starts ringing and then the speaker starts ringing. So what we're thinking about next year is having one of the parents that's there just be in charge of playing the music. In fact, getting the music downloaded. You could also have the players request songs that they like. Make it easy on yourself. When you email the parents at the beginning of the year, say, hey, what are a couple songs they'd like us to put on the practice playlist? Or what are 3 songs they'd like to have on the practice playlist? Now you got yourself a whole playlist and the kids like it. They got to pick the songs. But it really gave a nice vibe, upbeat vibe. I had a listener a few years ago say they did this at their baseball practice and there was a noticeable uptick in the energy and the vibe. So learning from this season, next season, we're going to ask each parent or player to just send us 3 songs, reply to the email with 3 songs that they'd like to see on the playlist. And then we boom, 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 add them to the playlist, title it baseball practice or volleyball practice in that case, and we're ready to go. Another way of doing this is if you have an old phone, just download the songs to that phone and play it off the old phone. And that cuts out those times that your phone might ring and override the music. Or when you get out in the outfield and your speakers in the dugout or behind home plate or wherever, that distance might be pretty far. That's why I think having another parent that comes to a lot of the practices, or ideally 2 different parents in case one doesn't show up, have a playlist or playlists that they could play and just quickly hook up to the Bluetooth themselves, just hook up to it and start playing that music, and they can handle it because they'll probably be sitting in a chair or in the bleachers or standing near one spot the whole time. Next thing, we crushed the 80-20 principle. We crushed it. For example, in volleyball at that level, it was serves and returns, not setting, not spiking, not even overhand passing at the level we were coaching at. It was get the serves over and be able to bump it back over. And we didn't try to get cute. At first, we just had our kids hit it back the first time, not try to do the traditional bump set spike. We just said, hit it back over, hit it back over. Because at the end of the day, you have to get the ball over the net in volleyball, right? So just getting it back over was a good step. It gave them confidence. It gave them positive outcomes, something that made it fun. As the season progressed, we started to tell them to, especially if they were back row, to pass it to one of their teammates who would then try to either set up another teammate or hit it over further to the back of the other team's court. So there was more of a teamwork strategy there. So the second half of the season, we added in that. We didn't start with that. We just, hey, just whoever the ball comes to, try to hit it back over the net. And it wasn't even like try to hit it to the back of the court or the side. We just said, try to get it back over. And my wife showed them how to hold their hands so they could consistently bump. We had them in a good ready position. There's already so many things involved with just getting the ball back over once. And in baseball, there's so many things involved with just fielding a basic ground ball that we don't need to get into super advanced glove and footwork when they're younger. There's already built in to each of these basic fundamental plays, these foundational plays and movements, already 2 or 3 things that they need to master within that. So for us, it was, they got to be paying attention and ready for the ball. They got to be ready when it comes their way. Some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of your players, you just want them to be ready for the ball, ready to move, ready for it, anticipate. Like that doesn't even get into any of the actual physical parts. So just focusing, right? So that takes coaching. Then once you get that, and some players, they get that right away or they're already dialed in, they're ready to rock. The next step is the basic one, like, for example, on ground balls, I wouldn't go like you need to go left, left, or right, left, right with I wouldn't even get into that with the footwork stuff. I would teach my infielders or anybody from the ground ball two things. One, that glove needs to stay on the ground and come up. It goes low to high. You start low to high with the glove. The glove is on the ground as that ball's coming, or once you're set up to field it. I mean, if you're charging it, you're not going to be dragging your glove on the ground, right? That's the main thing I would teach on ground balls is glove needs to stay down and then comes up. It doesn't go high to low. It goes low to high, all the way down and then up from there. Now, the caveat to that would be if it's a chopper, then of course they're not going to have their glove down on the ground, but they should be lower. Their legs should be lower. You're teaching them work low to high. And the other thing I would teach them and give an example of how you could just start simple on these ground balls is whether to stay back on the ball or to charge the ball. Just getting my kids to charge it and know how to attack a ball versus stay back on it, or sometimes even take a step back if it's a rocket, one hopper. So just teaching kids to play the speed of the ground ball or just getting to the fly ball. Sometimes just getting a jump and getting under the fly ball is a huge first step. So as an example for volleyball, what we taught was eyes on the server, mentally expect it, and then who's ever closest to it hits it back over. As we progressed, week 3, we had their eyes on the server, ready position, mentally expecting the ball. And when it came to them, they were expected to yell out mine and hit it back over. By week 5, take all those steps. The one we added there was teammates, we expect you to be ready for that second hit, because often, even though they're trying to hit it back over on the first hit, they would hit it towards one of their teammates or it would stay on our side of the court. Now we got the kids ready for that second hit. All right. Early on, we just wanted them serving. We taught them a basic bend your legs, follow through. That was it. Towards the end of the season, we were teaching some of the kids the overhand serve, those kids that were a little more advanced. Also, all the kids by the last 2 practices when we were doing serve drills were trying to hit it into a hula hoop on the other side. So first it was just get it over the net. Then it was get it over to the net inside the court. And then we added hit the serve into that hula hoop in the middle of the court or wherever we placed it. Now, those are just a few of the examples of how we kind of scaled up the difficulty, the challenge of each practice and increased it. We did name tags for the first 2 weeks. What we did learn about that was the name tags should be put on shoulders, right on their sleeve, upper sleeve on both sides. I would make 2, because sometimes when you're talking to a kid or teammates are talking, they can't see the name tag or they want to say the name. Maybe they're coming up to them and the name tag's on the other side. So name tag, big Sharpie names on both sides of the shoulders. It's easier to read them when it's on that upper sleeve part. If it's on the chest or something or on the back, sometimes it gets folded over a little. There's a little bit of a crease. Sometimes it's hard to see it from certain angles, but if you put them on those upper shoulder, those upper sleeves, those deltoids, that's a great spot. So 2 name tags, we did that for the first 2 weeks of practice. We had a practice plan, of course, for every practice, typed out, ready to go, with the key things we wanted to say and the key things we wanted to coach. It was a perfect 1-page practice plan. If the practice plan itself, the schedule, is more than 1 page, it's too long, in my opinion. That doesn't mean you can't have supplemental pieces that might be PDFs. Speaking of which, the 80/20 baseball coaching plan has 1-page PDFs, practice plans, and they're even editable, so you can adjust the times and add your own notes to them before you print them out. But each drill has colored PDFs that show exactly how the drill is run. So you print out the 2 or 3 drills you're going to use at practice that day, bring out with your practice plan. Now, not only do you have the practice plan, you have the drills in colored PDF form to have with you out there at practice. So I'll tell you what, that would have been nice to have for volleyball, something like that. Now let's back up to the beginning of the season. The first 2 weeks for practice 1 and practice 3, we brought beach balls out. We broke the players up into 4 groups and had 4 beach balls. And it allowed them a lot more reps. It facilitated quite a few more reps on bumping the ball up in the air because, of course, the beach ball stays in the air longer than a volleyball. And this allowed them to work on their footwork and get more reps before the ball hit the ground and you had to reset. And in baseball, there are Incrediballs, foam core balls, different types of balls that can be used. Tennis ball is a good one when you want to get that reaction time built up. In the 80/20 baseball coaching plan, there's even a drill called Tennis Express that shows exactly how to do that. All right. Now that was another way of how we implemented some introductory pieces and then built off that. They love the beach ball stuff. That was a really good way to build some confidence, get some reps in early, safely, and effectively, especially for a lot of the kids who hadn't played much volleyball before. So there's a wide variety of ways we can vary it and how we decrease or increase the difficulty level depending on where our players are at and what we're trying to accomplish. Lastly, we had a simple pizza team party outside the gym under a tree on a patch of grass after the second to last game. We got some pizza delivered. We had parents and players bring their own drinks, sodas, lemonade, water, etc. We had a couple parents offer to bring some salad, some dessert. We got the pizzas and just a real simple, cool end of the season team party. We did it nearby, which was pretty cool because it didn't require parents to have to go on a different day, which you can definitely do that. I think that's great. I definitely think that's doable and definitely highly recommended. In fact, I think a couple parties, if the season is long enough, would be highly recommended. One at the beginning of the season and one at the end. The one at the beginning is more of a camaraderie building type of event for players and parents. And then the one at the end is to celebrate and just have, a bunch of fun and just kind of end the season on a good note. But we did the one at the end. It was really cool. The kids got to play with each other as more than just teammates. And it was really simple. And so the game ended at 6:30. We were there till about 7:45 on that Thursday. And it worked out really well. So it doesn't really cut into a lot of plans and other things going on like on the weekend or other nights of the week. So that worked really well. So those are some of the things that went well, some of the things we learned. Oh, another thing, we had them high five at the end of every practice. They had to high five every teammate before they left. They had to say good job or something positive. We didn't get too specific with this. Something positive, a positive comment like good job today, good practice, and their name. High five, something positive, and their name. And I'm almost certain this helped the name usage increase and the kids call each other by their names, which builds a tighter team, right? Our name is music to our ears. So I think that really helped there. All right, let's pivot away from that. Next up, viewership for Major League Baseball is up big time. And I think a big part of that is because they've sped up the game, but they haven't shortened the game. They haven't taken out the outs. I mean, you could say they have that runner at second base in the extra innings. That aside, the games have gone back now to a amount of time that's much closer to when baseball was America's pastime. The 1950s, the average game was about 2 hours and 10 minutes. So the 1950s, when baseball was easily America's favorite sport, biggest sport, the games were 2 hours and 10 minutes. Now, last year, they got back down to about 2.5 hours, but they had been rising for about 30 or 40 years in a row, and they peaked at like 3 hours and 12 minutes a few years ago. So what can we learn from this? We can get the same amount of baseball done with just a few tweaks in 80% of the time. And we can do the same thing at our practices. These baseball games have the same amount of at-bats they typically have, the same amount of outs. MLB didn't say, hey, we're going to go 21 outs. They didn't say 18 outs. They didn't say 24 outs. They said, we're not changing anything about the innings, the at-bats. They just made some tweaks. Now, some of those tweaks might have come from within the game itself, like more strikeouts, fewer guys putting the ball in play, but I don't think that makes a massive difference. The big one is the pitch clock. So they just simply put a pitch clock. I've told you all for years, you got to have a stopwatch, not just for the drills, but for keeping the practice moving along. Ball parties should all be timed. Picking up baseballs, that is timed. Shifting between drills, that is timed. There is a time limit. That's where I like the bear crawls when kids aren't hustling. You give them a fair opportunity to get whatever it is done in that amount of time. Believe it or not, a lot of kids, especially younger kids, can pick up a lot of baseballs really fast. I have done this over and over and over again, and it'll shock you how fast 9-year-olds can pick up baseballs. Because you know what they stop doing? They stop shooting hoops. They stop goofing around. And when you say, hey, you got 75 seconds to get every baseball in the bucket or we're going to bear crawl to the fence and back, they find a way to get it done. And when you do that for every ball party or every time you're picking up baseballs, not only are they getting some conditioning in, it allows you to stretch out the drill and get more quality reps in. So I saw a stat that MLB viewership is up big time and it's more popular right now this year from last year. And I'm telling you, a huge part of that, in my opinion, is because the games are shorter, but they're not shorter. They haven't taken out the outs or the at-bats or the pitches. They've just taken out this extra time. They've trimmed the fat. In our practices, we can trim out so much fat. ESPN's MLB viewership ratings, according to Ben Verlander on X, he said ESPN is up 22%, TBS viewership up 16%, MLB Network up 13%, MLB TV is up 27%, Fox's baseball viewership up 10%. Those are huge numbers. Those are huge increases. Speed up practices. How many quality reps can you safely get in while minimizing any unnecessary safety risks? That's why it's good not to have a bunch of different drills that the kids got to learn and you got to learn and how to set up. You have your core drills. There's 15 core drills on the coaching plan. There's one drill for every skill, one drill for every action on that 80-20 baseball coaching plan. So you can master those drills, saving yourself a lot of time and just really maximizing the quality reps. There's no reason to extend practice time, increase the reps within the practice time you already have. I think the Major League Baseball's viewership is really climbing in large part because they've shaved off 20% of the fat. Same amount of game, 80% of the time. I've been going to baseball practices for almost 40 years. I've been to spring trainings, Division I baseball, high school baseball, of course, a ton of youth baseball, and I've never seen a practice at any level that the amount of quality reps couldn't be doubled with just a tweak or two. And in many cases, 3 or 4x the quality reps. So they're getting the same amount of baseball in 80% of the time, and the fans and everybody like it. And on the TBS statistic, they had a demographic breakdown. The 18 to 34-year-old demographic, it's up 70%. 70%. They like that speed. Now, of course, MLB should not go, well, let's make it a 1-hour game. That would be silly, and we wouldn't want that. But there's a lot of fat that can be trimmed off and not just leave us a good practice, but still leave us a great practice. All right, so I thought that was interesting. I like to tie some of these things that are going on in the baseball world or the sports world and tie them to how we can learn from these, tying in some of these key things out there in baseball world, baseball news, and how we can learn from them. I think that helps keep the episodes current, too. Speaking of which, umpire Laz Diaz. That's a cool name, Laz Diaz. He's a major league umpire, and he rang up Jake Magnum, that's another cool name, on a pitch that missed outside by almost 7 inches. He broke the record for the worst, I don't know if this was the worst strike 3 call or the worst strike call since they've tracked it or whatnot. But this was on Umpire Auditor on X. They do a scorecard for all the umpires. And Laz Diaz, 7 inches off the plate. So when we go to our next 10-year-old baseball game, 12-year-old, 14-year-old baseball game, and that 15-year-old umpire behind the plate calls a strike 1 foot off the plate, do not be surprised. This is a major league umpire in a major league baseball game with a major league pitcher and catcher and hitter, and he called it 7 inches off the plate. 7 inches outside the strike zone, he called it a strike. So when there are major league umpires calling strikes 7 inches off the plate, so when we're down there at the game next week and the volunteer umpire calls that pitch outside, take a deep breath and understand it's going to happen, all right? And if your team is really good, it's not going to make or break typically a game and definitely not the season. Now, one last thing. I'm sure many of you are like me and you're thinking, or at least questioning, was this just a one-off bad call? Is this an outlier? Maybe the umpire blinked. You ready? According to Umpire Auditor on X, umpires at the major league level missed 954 ball strike calls. Last week alone, 954 missed calls just last week, the week of June 2nd, including 52 that resulted in strikeouts. 52 hitters at the major league level last week struck out on a pitch that was, at least according to the vertical rectangle that we see on our screens these days, outside of that. So if umpires at the major league level miss 954 strike ball calls in 1 week, we're going to have a few terrible calls in our upcoming youth baseball game. All right, just trying to reset our paradigm so we can be better coaches by resetting and calibrating our expectations a little more aligned with how things are really going to shake out. All right, let's pivot to our last topic here. How can showboating actually help our players, our team, get a big long-term advantage? So let's discuss how showboating actually leaves a big long-term advantage for our players to capitalize on. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, and most of you have, you'll know that I am definitely not saying our players should showboat. But here's a look at showboating that I'm seeing so much of. And I don't know if it's because video is just everywhere now. Everybody has phones. You can videotape everything. But I truly believe that aside, showboating is at an all-time high in sports and definitely in baseball. The bat flips, all this stuff that I think has gone overboard one way, right? I think celebration is great. I think players should be able to celebrate, show emotions, be happy. I hate the phrase telling kids like, act like you've been there before. I think for major leaguers, maybe, especially if they've hit 300 home runs or whatever, yeah, sure. But for kids, they need to have fun, but they need to keep it with their team. It shouldn't be directed at all toward the other team. It should be completely with themselves or their own teammates. It definitely shouldn't be over the top. It shouldn't drag on for more than a second or two. Like, I love the celebration, like maybe a hands up or some fist bumps or Kirk Gibson, the pumping of the arms. I'm down with that. I like the excitement. I like when, when the Dodgers, if you watch them, they get on base. They always, every year for the last 5 years at least, they have some move they do to the dugout. They do it to the dugout and to the bullpen. If you see them do it, it's kind of a subtle 1 to 2 second kind of celebration move, dance thing they do. I'm down with that because it's to the dugout, their dugout, dugout every time. It's to their bullpen, nobody else. I like that. Some of this stuff that I see, extended celebrations, massive bat flips, terrible. It's terrible. Or as my guy Chuck would say, it's terrible. Now, where am I getting at with this? I think more than ever, there's an opportunity here for the kids that work hard, that stay humble, yet confident, and go out there, celebrate, but don't put all their energy into celebrating. They put their energy into working hard, playing the game the right way, being coachable. I think now more than ever, these types of kids are going to stand out more down the road. They're going to stand out more as they get older. These are the kind of kids, as they grow up, they're going to be the kind of people that people want to do business with. They're going to want them on their team. They're going to want to work alongside of them. They're going to want to hire them. They're going to want to hang out with them. And the gap is going to grow. The chasm is going to get larger and larger, in my opinion, because these habits these kids are forming now, these showboating habits, are going to be hard to break later. And that's going to put them further on the other side of the showboating, all about me, taunting spectrum. Of course, when you become an adult, that doesn't fly. So if we can get our players and double down on the work hard, stay humble, confident, subtle celebrations, stick with the team. It's not about showing up the opponent. It's not about me, pointing to myself. It's not about celebrating and not hustling it out and then finding out that home run was actually a double, finding out that home run didn't go over the fence, and now you get thrown out at second. If we can coach our players to play the game right, to be the kind of people that we wanted to be, I look at all this showboating around and go, oh, that's not good. That's not good for those kids. That's definitely not good for them. But unfortunately, we can't control that. We can only control our team, our kids. So let's focus on our kids and just don't get caught up in all the showboating we see around. Just keep coaching our players up to work hard, stay humble, celebrate with the team, and go out there and play the game the right way, play life the right way. And I'm telling you, this could open up a bigger gap for our kids to take advantage of as they get older, right? They're going to stand out more when they go to do business with somebody. They're going to stand out more if they want to play college ball. They're going to have less competition to get that scholarship because the college coach is going to see their attitude. When they go to get a job when they're older, they're going to stand out more. They're going to have risen above the competition more so. So I look at this showboating in a little bit different viewpoint in that, it's terrible. I wish I could just snap my fingers and it's gone, but we don't control the world. Heck, it doesn't even feel like we control our own lives sometimes, but we definitely have the opportunity to really double down and not get caught up like a sheep and do more showboating, but to get our kids actually doubling down on playing the game the right way, hustling even more, completely cutting off the taunting or talking to the other team or gesturing to the other team, completely cutting that off. And I'm telling you, as bad as that showboating is starting to become, it's a big opportunity for us that want to coach it up the right way to really have our kids as they get older separate themselves. While there's that arrogant bunch of show-offs that's just going to leave a distaste in everybody's mouth, especially as they get older. Now's the time to double down on coaching up the team to be good kids, hustle, good people, confident, humble, play the game the right way, play life the right way. So I mentioned the coaching plan a couple times on here. I will tie it in as we move forward with the different things. There's so much in it that I don't want to just sit here and talk about all the stuff and everything, but I want to tie it into how it can help you so you can see specifically as we move forward with our weekly episode, how it can best fit for you. If you're coaching all-stars right now, I've had multiple coaches reach out and say, hey, we already implemented on day one drills from the coaching plan. Our all-star teams loved them. It's a complete coaching program, a complete coaching plan. You could get it today and implement something later that day or the next day at your practice or multiple things. And one of the best things about it is that it has one drill for everything. You don't have to go, which drill should I choose for this or that, or this part of the outfield or infield or base running or catching. I will say this, for batting practice, there are two different station setups you could roll through. And when you see them, you'll know why there has to be two to kind of cover the different facets of offense. But everything else, it's one drill for one thing. And there's over 15 drills in there. And on my 75-inch touchscreen, I draw out exactly, I diagram exactly how to run the drill. So you see me break it down on my 75-inch touchscreen monitor. And another thing is, when you sign in to the coaching plan, there's a little box you can check and it'll say, keep me logged in. You just stay logged in and you just save that website, you bookmark, you just save it, boom. You could literally have a thought like, oh, I want to work on relays or I want to work on this part of catching. And you can go right to the coaching plan and be looking at me break down the drill you should use in like 60 seconds. And that was the whole thing. That's what took so long to build it out. That's why it took years to build out. It was making it so it's so efficient. It's like, how can I make an advanced coaching approach for youth baseball that is as efficient and as fast-paced as possible and right to the point without cutting corners, without not covering those key details that are needed. So you can find it right there on the homepage at 8020baseball.com. You will not be disappointed. I built it so even if you use just half of it, you're going to feel like you got twice your money's worth. For me, this was about creating something that everybody could have access to, everybody could afford, and everybody then could have at their fingertips the best coaching possible, the best drills, coaching consultant right there for you, no matter where you live. As you can tell, I'm pumped up about it. So next week, I had a long talk with another youth coach about an issue that came up with another team playing dirty. And I shared a 3-step process for handling these situations with the coach. And I'll share that 3-step process with all of you next week. And by knowing this 3-step process and by having it to go to when another team starts playing dirty, you know another team that you're about to play or that's coming up on the schedule plays dirty. By having this, it gives you back the control. It gives your team back the control rather than feeling helpless and hoping the ump interjects or something else is going to take care of it. This gives you a 3-step process to give the control back to you. And I think it's the best way to handle these situations if in fact they do come up. So we'll talk about that. A couple other things next week. I know this podcast is in year 6, but we're just going to continue to get better here. I'm continuing to get better and learning more. The feedback I get from coaches, the emails, the feedback I get, all the learning we're doing, we're going to continue to get better. We're going to take our coaching from good to great to elite. All right, y'all, let's take care of our health so we can have that foundation to take care of our players, our teams, our family, our close friends. And let's take this information out there to the field and put it into play. Contrary to that message these schools have been teaching for years and years that knowledge is power. Knowledge is nothing unless it's utilized, unless it's used, put into action. So give this information power by putting it into action. All right, everyone, you should be really proud of yourself for being a coach. And y'all take care. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Podcast, the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. We got this. Now, let's take the field.